Hi, my name is Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and I love to knit. One thing I love to knit is bobbles, and I've realized I've never made a knit tip for you showing you my favorite way to work a bobble. My latest Lola's Choice kit, Buble, has bobbles in it. It's hard to say that name without laughing. And so for that pattern, I go deep into bobbles and putting beads onto bobbles. So I thought I'd show you both of those techniques in this video. So let's jump right in and look at that together. I bet you're wondering what a bobble is. I like to think of a bobble as a concentration of stitches. They're quite easy to work, and down on my needles right here, I have a swatch with a few different bobbles. So I'll be showing you the way I like to work bobbles, and then another way that some people work bobbles that is not my favorite way to work bobbles. So I'm gonna go right into this stitch right here, and when you work a bobble, you're working it into one stitch. And I'm going to knit one and then yarn over, and then knit one and then yarn over, and then knit one. And now I've taken that one stitch and made it 5 stitches. And now I'm going to turn my work to the wrong side, and I'm going to purl across those 5 stitches. And then I'm going to turn my work again, and I'm going to knit across those 5 stitches. Now, if you find when you're working with bobbles that you end up working too many stitches, some people put a marker right here to remind them to stop knitting. I just count to 5. Now I'm going to turn my work again, and I'm going to purl 5. And now I'm going to turn my work again, and it is time for me to resolve my bobble. And what I mean by that is close up the top of my bobble. And here's my favorite way to do that. I knit 2 together, and then I slip 2 together knitwise, and then I knit 1, and I pass those 2 slip stitches over, and then I pass that knit 2 together stitch over. And I've taken those 5 stitches and made them 1 stitch again and made a little bobble right there. And if you look below this column of bobbles, this bobble is exactly the same as this bobble where I've worked that end with the knit 2 together, slip 2 stitches, knit 1, and then pass everything over. This bobble right here, I work a little bit differently. So what I'm going to do right now is undo that top right there and show you this other way, because you can decide which way that you want to work your bobble. I wonder if this is going to make you all a little nervous, me undoing that. So I've undone it so that I need to finish that purl row. I love undoing my stitches and getting them back on my needle. You just have to stop breathing for a second when you do that. So now we're going to try this way where I knit 3 together and work 3 stitches together, and then I knit 2, and then I pass this stitch over this stitch. And you'll see that that bobble, it's maybe a little bit more round than the way I worked it before. It might depend on the yarn you're using, which way you like to resolve your bobble. So play around when you're knitting bobbles and decide which one you like more. I tend to revert to that first one I showed you, but sometimes I will do that second version. And what I want to show you over here on this column is another way to work bobbles. Some people like to, when they get to the stitch that has their bobble in it, instead of doing a knit 1 yarn over, they knit into the front and back of their stitch so that they have 5 stitches. So that's 4, and then that is 5. And then they go ahead and continue to work the same where they purl a row, knit a row, purl a row, and then resolve that bobble. But if you look at those stitches, these bobbles compared to these bobbles, I find that this bobble where you're doing that knit one, yarn over, knit one is so much more kind of round and bobble-like, if that is a terminology that we could use together. So I like to start with that knit one, yarn over, knit one. I just think it's important to show you those things because I'm thinking about them when I'm designing, and I love to share them with you. Now that you know how to work a bobble, I bet you're thinking, what if I wanted to put beads on my bobble? And I do that on the bottom border of Buble, and I want to show you what that looks like on Buble. All right, we're looking at this bottom border on Buble right here, and you can see that I've got a contrasting bead right at the center of that bobble. I think it adds just like such a fun, delicate little edge to the scarf, and I really, really love how those beads kind of pop on the bobbles. It is super easy to do, and I have a Buble on my needles right now that is, I'm not at the bottom border yet, which has the beads, but I can show you how the beads are worked right there. And I am on a knit row of this bobble right now, and the beads are actually placed on the purl row. So I'm going to turn my work to the wrong side, and now what I'm going to do is purl 2, and then the pattern says PBP, which means place bead purl. So let me grab my beads, and I've just got a small 1mm crochet hook right here, and this is a size 6 bead. If you've never placed beads before, I do have a separate knit tip that does a deep dive into placing beads, and I'll leave a link to that below if you want to watch that. I'm just going to go ahead and take this stitch that I want to have the bead on, slide it off the needle onto the crochet hook, drop that bead down onto the stitch, put that stitch back onto the needle, purl that stitch, and then purl the last 2 stitches. And now when I turn my work, it's going to be time for me to resolve that bobble. And we already went over the 2 ways to resolve that bobble a little bit earlier in this video. So that's everything that I have to show you about bobbles, just a small little deep dive. I'd love to get geeky with you all and teach you things that I'm exploring as I'm exploring them on my needles. I would love if you would subscribe to my channel, sign up for my newsletter. Everything I talked about, I'll leave links below in the video notes. So by all means, go and check those out. Happy knitting.